world with your host, Paul Clapp. We're fortunate to have Mr. Brian McFarland on the line and his friend Tom. We're going to be doing some Mandela talking. So sit down, strap in, and get ready for a wild ride. As usual, we'll be talking about some esoteric topics that we've discussed many times here on this channel. And without further ado, I'm going to let Mr. Brian McFarland grab the mic, and he's going to come in and talk to us some.
All right, great. Yes, hey everyone. How is everybody doing today?
Well, I think, Brian, they tell you they would be doing a lot better if they get the Highway 29 fixed in the valley. They've dug up about 2 or 3 miles of it. It's been that way for a week and a half, and they hadn't done anything. So from that standpoint, I'm sure the listeners would tell you they would be doing much better. Have that problem in Valdosta, do you?
No, not really. It's not as jammed up here. Typically, we only have traffic whenever there's a hurricane and people have to come up this way to evacuate, which I am praying for all those people down there in Texas. They say.
Great. I was going to ask you to do that. I'm glad, and I'm sure our listeners are praying for them. That's something that we hate to see anybody go through.
Exactly. Lord, Heavenly God, we ask that you watch over and protect the people down there in Texas, especially around the Galveston, Houston area, that you watch over them and keep them protected. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
Man, brother, let me tell you, so far so good. We haven't lost any lives, I don't think, right now. So I think everybody's doing all right. They've been heeding the warnings. So and all of this happened just around the time of the eclipse. I am thankful that we made it through just fine. There are some things that people experienced during the eclipse. Some kind of shifting, possibly. A lot of people in the Mandela effect world can tell you that they can tell when there's a shift going on, possible shift. There's like ringing in the ears, for instance, happens among a lot of us. But these are some of the small things, okay? There is a bigger thing going on here, okay? And I wanted to thank you, Paul, for having me on the show. And I feel really compelled and driven to tell people that have not experienced this. Those who are experiencing it, maybe they don't understand. So what we're trying to do is reach out to everyone. That way no one's left behind. And with all the signs in the skies and everything that is going on with our planet right now, aware of what season we're in. And we're in that season where the Lord is talking about in the Bible, and we see the signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars. The stars just don't look the same anymore. They're kind of dimmed out. There's a lot of things going on, just as the Lord told us. And for centuries, our ancestors would talk about a day that would come. Some say it is the rapture coming. Some New Agers say it is the Great Awakening or higher consciousness. And the reality of the situation is that something mysterious and supernatural is happening that science can't even explain. Some of the best psychologists have tried, but nobody can completely put their finger on it or what is manifesting in the reality today. And many of us recall at the drop of a hat what we in the community recall as we recall it. For instance, the Berenstein Bears, and that Fox, what was it, Fox or CBS, one of the main networks, okay, they did some interviews with people on the street. And
we had a little clip, in one of your videos. It was a
and we have Tom. We have Tom Hefner on the line here. Hey Tom, how's it going, buddy?
Good, doing great.
Hey Tom,
how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good for an old man.
You're sounding pretty perky.
Yeah, well, that's I think I've just got food, drinking part of a protein drink, and maybe that's helping me. I don't know.
Tom, I was just explaining about Berenstain Bears, and like, you know how the news channel was coming to people on the street, asking them the question, do you remember Berenstain Bears or Berenstain Bears? And virtually everybody was saying Berenstain with the EI. Many people recall it with the EI. So, you know, if the people are awake, it can throw them through a loop, and it messes with their psyche. Do you remember that, Tom? Do you remember the people being interviewed on the street? Do you remember that little clip from the news?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Fox News.
Yeah, I think it was Fox. It was a certain Fox channel. It wasn't Fox News per se.
It was one of the Fox channel interviewing him. He said, "Luke, I am your father," and they convinced him it was no. Right? That one, right?
Yeah, yeah, and that was this happened recently. It happened in the last or whatever. This happened very recent, where they were doing interviews. So the question is, huh?
Yes. Go ahead with your question.
Well, the question is, okay, getting to the heart of the matter. Why is it that we were chosen to see the things that others cannot see? Like, some people see the changes. Some other people are accepting this new that we're in, and why is it that it takes, sometimes it takes a little bit of awakening, like shaking. You have to you know, like, for some people, one Mandela, that's all it takes. Okay, other people need more and more proof of the effect. Why sometimes do we face ignorance? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I could tell you my spin on all that.
Okay.
Is, the one where, let's say they remember something so vividly that when you show the change, I mean, it absolute goes tilt. That'll like shock and awe, wake them right up. Other people, they don't have like sharp memories. Like they actually don't remember things. And then what happens is they're not really sure. So that's not a real strong fact. They can doubt their own memory, okay? And then there's other things where I'm going to coin this phrase, the Stairway to Heaven, where I always remember that song saying, she's buying a stairway to heaven. But you, Brian, and you, Teresa, always remember as being building a stairway to heaven. Now, you guys have residual proof that it was building stairway to heaven, but with me, I've always remembered buying a stairway to heaven, and I listened to that song since I was a teenager, and I'm like in my 50s now.
And I'm with you on that, Tom. I remember it that way too.
Which one? Wait. Which way do you remember it?
I'm buying. I mean, I sit in front of Led Zeppelin many hours, and it's always been, and it makes sense that she's buying a stairway.
Exactly, with the glitter and gold. Yeah. But there's some people that remember it building, but that's fine.
You, Brian, you remember it as building, correct?
I remember it as building, but I didn't 100% know the band that well back in the day. For some people, it is building. I remember learning the song when I was younger. I learned how to play it on the guitar, but I didn't really know the band. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't really
that song on the guitar. Obviously, you would have remembered the lyrics as building a stairway to heaven, correct?
Yes.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. You've always remembered it that way, and I remember this way. That's why I'm coining a new phrase. I call it stairway to heaven. So people can have not identical realities as far as remembering things one way or another. That's another reason why you get this conflicting. Let's say you come at me and say, oh, yeah, it's always been building, but I've always remembered as buying. I'm going to go with what I remember and what I see now. So that's another reason why people don't see that, okay? there's a lot of hits and misses. There's either people that, you know, when you see all these changes, they've always remembered as the way it was, the way it is changed now. So with this quantum effect, not everything is, yeah, you can have duality or triality or whatever, how many different combinations. You know, like the spelling of Louisiana, for example, I've encountered that somebody had two different spellings as a ME. Now there's actually a third different spelling, which is the way it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So the name of that state was three ways. Now, some people remember it all ways, one way, and all that.
Yeah.
But so that's just another one of those things.
Well, let's talk about, because some of the even master spellers, even teachers, there are teachers still teaching kids how to spell dilemma. And dilemma, right. I remember pronouncing dilemma as dilemna, and now it has dilemma had two M's now. So, and there are teachers teaching it as dilemna. That's not the only one that's changed. We have Phillips is now, Phillips, one of the L's dropped off of the company name. Phillips had two L's. Now it has one. Another one. What's another famous one, Tom? Help me out here. Do you know?
Marshmallows.
Marshmallow versus marshmallow. It's there's a lot of people remember it marshmallow. And
when I interviewed somebody, I told them, "How do you spell marshmallow?" And they spelled it with an A. And then I questioned about it. I go, "Oh, I've been a spelling aide since I was a kid." She was in her 50s. And it's always marshmallows, and she gives me a story how they call it marshmallow, but it's actually mallow. So that's another person who remembers it the way it is now.
Yeah, you know? Well, the thing is, with the Mandela effect, what my main goal is, Tom and Paul here, my main goal is to catch the Mandela in the act, and I have done that several times. I have caught the Mandela red-handed because in my video that changed, but what I'm talking about did not. And that's why I do all these proofs. And I know it may sound a bit tedious to the average person, but that's my goal, is to try to catch the effect in the act again and again, every time. One of the main things. Can I talk about one of the main things I noticed?
Sure.
I was at Applebee's, and Teresa pointed out to me that the A and the P had merged, right? They were never merged before in Applebee's. So I talked about it like they were merged and joined like a 6. The P's were not broken at the time. A few weeks later, we see the P's broken. And it's not about companies changing it. You know how they say the excuses that companies can go in there, they could change whatever. And, you know, they hire guys to get up on ladders and take down the logo, put up the new one. Yeah, I understand that. But when you go on, like, say, Logopedia, you go to watch an old television commercial, Applebee's always had the broken P's, and that bothers me. Kind of had the deer in the headlights effect there. So another thing that I've there's another thing that we've caught. Teresa found me some residue. Now, guys, those of you out there, I want to give a shout out to my good friend Teresa Lynch. She always finds me residue, or as we like to call it, stuff that's left behind after a change has been made. There's a memory. So there are these people, young kids, probably high schoolers, and they're dancing up on a stage, right? And what's playing in the background, there is this scene where Tom Cruise, right? He just kick off those Sunday shoes or whatever, the old time rock and roll song, and let me ask you, Paul, what do you remember with Tom Cruise and that scene?
Well, I know where I think I know where you're going with the Ray-Bans. I do remember the Ray-Bans. You
do? Oh my God! Wow. Because these kids are getting up there dancing to the song, and they actually have a.
I mean, that was the coolest part of the whole thing. I didn't give a crap about him sliding across the floor. He had the cool glasses on, you know.
Yeah. But you know how, like, some people say, like, oh well, they're just, you know, deleting scenes and adding new ones, right? But here these kids are imitating what they're seeing on the screen, and you can see it. It's a YouTube video from 2011. And in that video, they're watching on the projector screen. They're imitating him with the glasses. So the proof is there. That proves that that's what they know. That's what they remember. But why is there residue left behind after a change? You know, that's what I'm wondering.
Well, you know, going back a little to one of your early videos and talking about the HIPAA code. And this was as little as 3 years ago and possibly 4 years ago. And I work in the medical field, and I assign the HIPAA codes to people. That way, if we get a patient in and somebody calls on the phone and says, I want us to check on so-and-so, and we'll say, what's the HIPAA code? And then they'll have to tell us the password. So I'm putting in the HIPAA code on somebody, and this lady who's a unicorn, they said, you spell HIPAA wrong. I spelled it H-I-P-A-S. I said, no, it's not wrong. She said, yes, it's wrong. I said, no, it's not wrong. And she said, yes, it's wrong. I said, look it up. Well, the only reason I knew it was H-I-P-A-A instead of H-I-P-P-A is because I just read an article and they had it in there. So she looked up and said, I've always spelled it wrong. I said, well, I have too. And nobody spells it H-I-P-A-A. Everybody spells it H-I-P-P-A. But here's my point. We did not, or I did not have a construct that says reality can change. So I didn't even investigate it. I just saw it and said, well, and I locked that in my belief system and went on with it from then out. So when people see Fruit Loops and they remember fruit and they think, you know, they don't have in their reality set that there can be a change like that, they just say, well, is that wrong? Lock that belief and go on.
Yeah, it's a simple logo change. The company changes the logo.
Yeah, I mean, it's the concept for this is something supernatural is not there, and without that concept being there, that new idea can't form.
Oh, that is good. I like your explanation of that, how they're not awakened. Because especially if you get hit with these little subtleties. I remember like years ago I spelled a lot A-L-O-T all together. But then a couple of years ago, like you said, it was separated and the spell checker kept saying it was wrong. I just kind of like said, oh, okay, I must be missing or something, and never thought about it. But as a part of that, I never was aware of reality change and simulated that.
Yeah, well, that's a great word, to simulate. Well, and I have seen people do it. And I know, Brian, you and Tom have seen people do it. You'll point out something like, say the dash not being in the middle of the Coca-Cola and being at the top. And they'll say, yeah, I remember it used to be down here. And then you ask the same person, talk about the same thing. 3 months later, they've assimilated the new change, and they said, no, it's always been up here. Because their mind cannot absorb the idea of reality changes. It's just not there, so that idea has no place to go.
Yeah, then they look at you as you're absolutely nuts.
Yeah. You were a genius the first time, and the second time you're a nut. You know?
Yeah, you're a nut. Yeah. But then like when you get, but the thing is, they'll give you the evidence is the residual. And the 2 points is, how come everybody remembers it wrong the same way? When somebody sees an accident, multiple times, they'll give you a little different spin on it. But on these changes, everybody will remember it wrong the same way. I mean, that's proof there that it was something that was, that was actually there that way, I mean, that's another way. Because they cannot ingest reality or matter being altered, then that theory is out the window. They will not believe that way. They say you're a psyoptic, nutcase.
Tom, I'm so glad I've got you and Brian. I heard something. I've been listening to. I've actually got his first book, Tom Campbell's My Big Toe. Hopefully it'll get here today. It's a trilogy, so I'm going to absorb that one before I get the next two. I know kind of the main points of his theory. I believe I know him, and he said one thing, and going through about 15 of his videos, and it just really struck a chord with me. Are you kind of familiar with his theory?
No, never heard of it.
What's his name? What's his name?
Tom Campbell. He's
Tom Campbell.
And he's really, you'd say, a theoretical physicist, even though he's worked for NASA and different things. But my big toe, which he and maybe 3 or 4 other physicists 15 years ago thought the simulation theory was a good one. Nick Bostrom, who is head of physics at Oxford, he wrote a famous paper in around 2002, somewhere around there, on the simulation theory, and a handful of others. Now there are literally maybe 1,000 or so physicists that say, this does explain the double split. This does explain a lot of different things. Now, Tom's theory basically comes from a science background, but the theory is that we're in a virtual reality, and that our individuated unit of consciousness is basically where we are, and we're part of the larger consciousness, which, in my opinion, would be God. It would be the being that we are part of. And the reason that we're here, and I love this about his theory, the reason that we are here is to decrease ego, to decrease beliefs, and one of the ego, beliefs, and something, fear. Yeah. We're trying to decrease ego, beliefs, and fear. And when you do that, that increases or decreases entropy. And entropy is just randomness. And when you decrease randomness, you increase love and acceptance and all the things that Jesus talked about, putting others in heavy first. And if we were fraudulent, we would talk about it taking us from the ego, fear-based self to a super ego, other-based self. And by building up these little individuated units of consciousness that we are, then the whole other consciousness, the larger, greater consciousness, can not necessarily grow, but more self-actualization. If you go on Maslow's hierarchy period, self-actualization is on top.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we're worried about food and reproduction and meet basic needs, so most people never get to that mental capacity where they can think about things that we're talking about now. Now,
can I say something?
Yes, sir.
I was going to inject there where people worrying about food and their self things. In the Bible, Jesus says, "Do not worry about what you eat or what you wear or what you drink, for your heavenly Father knows what you need of before you need it." So, in other words, he's telling you by worrying, it won't increase your height. He's saying focus on the real things, focus on the supernatural, the kingdom of God, the things that are unseen, which are eternal.
Yes.
In other words, as we focus on our own selves, we kind of make ourselves somewhat of an idol, and therefore we become, as the law of thermodynamics say, breaking down or being selfish. But as we become less selfish and consider others, have faith in God, and all these natural things and all these lower order things are met, then we kind of rise up into a higher level, higher state.
Back to intent too. I used to sell cars, and we had an old saying: you couldn't sell a car at a funeral. If you're always down and pessimistic, your life will tend to follow that. If you're optimistic, have faith, and have positive intent toward other people, doors tend to open for you. And I think they've opened for you. I think they've opened for Brian because of your intent. You know, you can have two people doing the same action. The man walking down the road and drops his billfold. There's another man right behind him. He's going to steal the billfold, but he sees somebody's watching him across the street. So he gets the billfold and begrudgingly gives it back to the man. He had bad intent. Another man's the same thing happened to him without hesitation. Gives the man back the billfold. He had a positive intent. So it's not an action-based thing, it's an intent-based thing. One thing that and this, I love this too, because he gets into this where other physicists won't. He says paranormal things, supernatural things are in the program, they're in our data stream. One reason that they're there is to open our consciousness. And he said everybody won't get them. But when you're getting them, this opens your mind to accept the larger reality. When you accept the larger reality, when you do things out of love rather than fear and ego, and when you have ego, when you have hostility toward people, anger, that goes back to a fear. You can trace that back to a fear. And if you eliminate the fear, you eliminate the anger. You may be mad at somebody because they did something to you. Well, if you trace that back, that might be something that happened when you were a kid that you were associated it to. You know, it may be completely something really unrelated to what you think you're mad at. Or somebody made me mad because they did something. Well, people don't make you do something. This is your own response. You know, but it goes generally back to a fear. But here's the big thing that he said, and he only said it one time, and he said that he noticed it in the 1980s, that he felt like in the 1980s, and I can understand this, that this simulation was headed toward oblivion, and it was reset. And I thought, wow. And he said, in the reset, you may have people who retain some of the old memories that the higher consciousness felt that they could handle some of the old memories, and it would be beneficial for them to have that. And I'm just wondering if we've been through a reset and we have pre-programmed changes in that reset that keep randomly occurring or occurring on their own schedule.
Well, what I was going to say, getting back to faith-based reality, I mean, not faith-based, but yeah, that too, but as being a simulation, is the reason why scientists are thinking this, because when they get down to measuring down to Planck's length, right, they cannot get down any smaller than Planck's length.
There's no continual way to keep cutting stuff. You get down to a certain level, and that's it.
And that's the bit resolution, and then Planck's time is basically the amount of time it takes speed of light to travel across Planck's length.
Right, right. That's why the speed of light is constant. It's right. one pixel of what we call reality in one unit of the smallest unit of time. And so no matter if you're shining a light from a fast-moving car going front with the backwards, it's always going to be the same thing, because it's always processing at the same rate. That's as quick as it can process.
Exactly. So, you know, our big resolution of this whole universe reality is down to Planck's constant. Now, the other thing is they talk about how E equals mc squared, that mass equals energy. You know, it's like mass times energy squared, speed of light squared. I'm sorry, mass equals energy times speed of light squared. And so, in other words, if you have a tremendous amount of energy, you can convert that into mass and vice versa. But everything is made up of information. Right. And this morning, believe it or not, I was looking at a book. I'm thinking, okay, this is actually energy, but it's been combined so much together, it creates mass, weight, substance as we think it is. But actually, everything could be energy. But the reason why we have mass is because it's so much compiled together, and that's how you got to run reality. So that's the reason why everything, people say, well, this is solid, I can feel, touch it. But the only thing that's telling you that is your five senses, your sense of touch, you're set to sight and sound. If you knock, it makes it sound, but that's not really solid as you would think it's solid. It's actually energy, but it's in a higher, greater form of energy than just electrons and protons. And even gravity is under the same guideline. That's the reason why Peter walked upon water, you know, because he believed, again, it's a faith-based reality. That's why I said that earlier, that, you know, we talked about the law of attraction, where people that are negative, they view everything as being negative. Oh, I can't do this and that. So what happens? They attract that. They have faith towards that, and then they get what they believe. Jesus says you get what you believe. Same way with the good things. And then, you know, I've seen these other people, like the New Agers do have a piece of the truth where they say if you believe it and see it, it'll start to manifest. And, you know, these people writing a check themselves for $10 million, like Jim Carrey said at Oprah, next thing you know, down the road, he got paid $10 million for doing Dumb and Dumber. And then one last point I want to say is that faith and fear are identical. They say fear is opposite of faith, but fear is the same as faith. And the reason why I say that, faith is believing, hoping what things you want, things you desire. Fear is believing and actually thinking and knowing that the things you don't want are coming towards you. They use the same principle, but
it's funny you say that, Tom. It's funny you bring up fear, because that's exactly what some of the media, not all of them, but some of them are using to control the masses. Am I right? They're using some fear to sort of move the masses, so to speak.
Exactly, and that's the thing. If they use fear, then they can spin it. Actually, they want to spin it the way they want to spin it, and when it strikes up fear in people's hearts, then they start believing it, and corporately they start to manifest it. Instead of having, you know?
Yeah, if I may interject, Tom, about fear and faith-based reality, you know, fear, isn't that like a lack of faith? It's like
fear is faith. No, fear is faith, but it's faith for things you don't want to happen. Like,
okay.
Like, in other words, I'm scared to death to get in a car. Let's say I'm scared to death to get in a plane crash or car accident, right? You know, I'm thinking that, you know, and then I'm believing that that's going to happen to me. You know, believe in your heart, and then you speak it, and you shall have what you want. It's the same principle, the same exact thing. Well, what you got to do is focus on the things you want, desire, and not give credence to what you don't want or afraid of.
I think Tom, what Brian's saying, I'll use an example from Tom Campbell, that if you're in the woods, okay, you're going in the woods, and the first guy, and this is mating season for bears, he sees the bears, and says, oh, I'm scared, you know, dude. He starts running out, and, you know, predators naturally chase something that's running after him, and I mean, it's running, and okay, somebody else walks in. He sees the bear. Now, he has his adrenaline goes up. He realizes he's in a tough situation, but because he doesn't have that prime, this is what we're talking about, that primal fear that creates chaos. He's able to say, okay, I know I can't outrun this. I'm going to stay where I am. I'm going to slowly back up. I'm going to keep this bear in my sight. And he slowly backs up, and the bear doesn't feel threatened. He doesn't have the response if somebody's running, it's prey, I've got to get him. And the guy gets out. Both were in the same situations. Both had the same stimulus. But the fear that I think Tom Campbell's talking about creates randomness and chaos, and creates a situation where I'm scared I'll lose my wife, so I will just watch her everywhere she goes. I will bug her car. I'm so scared of her, and because of the irrationality that goes with that type of fear, actually it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy and increases entropy and randomness, and it's something that God does not want us to have. You know, I think God wants us to be fearless but at the same time, he doesn't want us to play in the street, you know.
Be wise, but
he wants us to be wise. He doesn't want us to be erratic and hey, let's just jump off this bridge. God's with us, you know. Well, God's got gravity too, and we have to obey the rules of the reality that we're in. You know, we have gravity here. If we were on the moon, maybe we could do more. But if it is a video game, it does have rules that
exactly
we have to go along with.
But I wanted to make a point there where you have the natural, and then you have what's the supernatural. The thing is with the natural is like a default way the simulated program runs. If you put your hand on a hot stove, you'll burn it, stuff. If you try to walk on water, you're gonna fall right to the bottom of the ocean or whatever. But when you believe in stuff to the point where it's not you're believing and you still go underwater, when you believe to the point where you have this knowing and you step out, like Peter, he actually walked on the water. In that point, he was at the level where at that moment it was a supernatural rewriting of the default program where he could walk on the water. And of course, you hear the miracles, and of course today with the faith healers, with people being healed of cancer, obviously, stuff like that. But basically, in other words, things are running a default, natural way things work. And I watched this TV program called Stan Lee. He had a thing about
the Superhuman show. Yeah, I remember that.
And the 2 points that really got me was one, the guy who could put himself in ice for a whole hour, ice water. He would think, he's in there for a whole hour, right? A regular person would die to thermo, whatever. He comes down there and his body temperature's perfectly normal, right? Then they got another guy who is like the electric guy where he can pass enough current to his body to actually run a hot burner, which is like mega, like lots of amps of current, would like literally fry your body, but he's like they're all happy and stuff. So these are people that they're functioning in the supernatural realm in those particular things. They've reached to the point where their faith in that became a reality and rewritten the normal script of, hey, you're going to freeze to death. Hey, you're going to not only be electrocuted, but you're going to be cooked. So I look at those two things too, like these things are naturally supernatural to these people.
Exactly. Can I add to that real quick? Because in the Bible, it does mention about having that mustard seed of faith. And what is a mustard seed? It's one of the smallest seeds on the planet. Just having that little bit of faith can move mountains, right? If you believe something strong enough, you will overcome your fears.
And Brian, there have been many, and unfortunately, I think the bulk of them are unpublished, experiments with intention, the Global Consciousness Project, just all sorts of things where data is changed, physical things, the probabilities have been changed by people's intent. So that stuff is real, and if somebody is really connected in with God as a higher consciousness, if they're really connected in, they have immense a power at their not at their disposal, but they're teeming with immense power, and if it's something good that God can work through them to happen, like Peter walking on water, I'm sure was a great lesson, and it can happen. It can happen. So all that stuff is. And I want to ask you and Tom something. This is nothing that Tom Campbell brought out in his theory, but I think it merits some consideration because I think it explains a lot too of the human condition. If there is a higher consciousness, which is God, that basically is care about us as children, as his children, and wants us to develop spiritually, is there not a higher negative demonic power who is interested in undoing everything that God wants done, and is why we get this, like Tom was talking about, the fear, confusion, hunger, all these things that take us to a place opposite of where God wants us to go.
Yeah, the what is it? The outer dark. He describes it basically in the Gospels. That the people in darkness will be left in darkness.
Well, you want to know what I think about? Just thinking about right now is, you know, before the quantum, like, people realized the quantum changes. You know, everything was same. The paths was static. Nothing changing. Now, when we found out that things are changing, what it does, it actually unveiled something that was hidden from mankind generally, although there are probably individuals that always knew about this stuff, but in general, it unveiled something. So the enemy exploits it by trying to confuse people, create hatred, thinking their friends are crazy, separating family members because one believes, one doesn't. So the enemy's twisting, using all that, because this new level understanding or revelation of truth about reality has been revealed. But on the other hand, the people who are awake, who see it as being changed, and then quantum mechanics, quantum physics theoretically it lays out, well, this is the way the universe really is. Now we've got to a new level of understanding where hundreds of years ago when we just saw lightning, we didn't realize it was like electrons shooting across the sky. Now not only we know it's electrons, but now we harness that energy for whatever we want for our daily use. So I really believe that the ones who are grasping the changes and are not afraid of it, but exploring it and trying to convince the people who don't know about it, I mean, that's what God wants us to do. And one last point is God uses patterns in all creation. Like, for example, the Fibonacci numbers, the golden ratio. If you look at that, he uses that in everything, in the law of growth and everything creation. You're going from the spiral of the galaxy to the spiral of a hurricane to the spiral of your ear and spiral of the conch shell. It uses the exact same, sequence. And God just uses mathematics. He frames everything out mathematically. So those things that look beautiful and aesthetic, actually, they're line up with the exact proportion of the golden ratio. Things that are ugly and look out of whack, whether it's your face or whether it's a building structure, it's not to the divine proportion. And that's just one.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, Tom. And it kind of goes into a question which I think Tom Campbell kind of answered, but I want to tie it back in with what you just said. The question was put to him, well, if the idea is to awaken everybody, and some paranormal event would do that or help facilitate that, why isn't it just paranormal? Why is this always on the fringes? And his answer would be because God knows that if there was a massive something, it would create fear, which would be exploited, and it would just increase entropy, which is exactly what he doesn't want. So it's more of an individual thing that happens to individuals at different times in their life when they can accept it. And kind of going back around to that point, let's think about some of these very interesting, not the ones that are obviously man-made, but these very, scientists have been studying these little nodes that are turned over, and some have radiation or magnetic properties. These are things that are made overnight in a very quiet manner, and some are very intricate and beautiful things. And they're things that obviously were man-made. But, and, you know, scientists have said these have supernatural properties, but it's never in the press. You never see it in the mainstream. It's always out on the fringes. So it will only affect a few people at the time compared to the large population.
I know. And one thing I want to say is that many people have been experiencing the so-called Mandela effect before it was even called the Mandela effect. It was called something else. But they were experiencing it back as early as some people say the 1980s with some of the changes. And that's completely bizarre to me because, like, I go to look up, like we brought up Tom Cruise and the Ray-Bans. I looked that Mandela effect up. I tried to find posts on Facebook. Nobody posted at all in 2015. And then we see late 2016, there are a few posts that pop up. So that may be a recent change. But like stuff like a lot of people remember Jiffy peanut butter. That's an older change. And I've talked with Jinx Cat. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, if you've seen her work too, Paul, but she does a really good job bringing people together. She's on YouTube as well.
Oh yeah.
Jinx Cat.
She does the personal story.
Yeah, she admits that Jiffy changed in 2005 from Jiffy to Jif. She used to buy that stuff all the time.
I think changes. I think the thing that has facilitated a group such as yours or a radio show talking about this subject is basically the internet. It's like when I saw the HIPPA change to HIPAA, it just, like I said, I didn't have the hardware to accept that change in my mind. And so I kind of blew it off. I recognized there was a change, but, you know, I didn't see it as supernatural anyway. I just, you know, knocked it off the faulty memory. And I think that's
because you have the internet.
Yep.
Everybody on the planet could collaborate and say, hey, I got the same thing too. Then you all come together. Knowledge, because knowledge is exploding simply because people can connect. That comes back to the law of unity, where when you come together in a unified format, you have like a greater awareness, a greater mind. That's the reason why technology, everything's exploding. It's like exponential thing.
And we got into we got into a little bit of the skull changes, and a lot of people know what the skull used to look like, and now we see all these holes drilled in the skull that were never there before. I spoke to Dr. Taran Lupo. He's a famous chiropractor, and he remembers the name of this special bone. I can't think of it right now, but it's a bone in your between your jawbone and the back of the skull. There are actually two.
You know, and it could just be these changes are there to wake us up to a larger reality. And this is what you know. Tom kind of gets a little esoteric. I guess you would say he's kind of into astral projection and stuff like that, which I don't really know too much about. But he does say in your sleeping life, that is another form of a virtual reality where the choices you make reflect your real self, your true self, at the being level that you're actually trying to improve and decrease, you know, ego and beliefs and fear. And when that happens, your whole panorama changes, and he said several people who have read his books have had started having paranormal things happen to them simply because now their mind was open to the possibility that something could happen. So when something did happen, they were aware of it, where in the past, their mind wouldn't let it in, basically.
But at least now we're seeing more openness. You know, it's funny, like all these changes. I think we have major shifts, and I think we have minor shifts. We had some kind of major one, I think, back in October, around October, November time frame, and we noticed these flips, or we see logos that change more than once. We saw, some people say they saw Hillary's name go from 2 L's to 1 L back to 2 L's. The other one is Flintstones, from Flintstones to Flynn Stones without the T. And there was even a line. We're talking about movie lines.
That's the Flintstones, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the Flintstones. It's back with the T. But back in October, I noticed it myself too. The T dropped off Flintstones. And there was a line, a famous line, and I remember people talking about it as an effect, that it went from Houston, we've had a problem, to Houston, Houston, we have a problem, to Houston, we've had a problem, and then back to Houston, we have a problem. So it's bizarre.
Yeah,
and that was just before
October of last year.
Yes, and it was right around the time of, guess what, the election. That was so weird.
Yeah. And Tom, I have a answer for you on the Sun and Flat Earth interviewing Mark Sargent a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I asked him the specific question about the Sun and Antarctica, and he said, basically, well, you know, everything you see in the heavens is a simulation anyway, can do whatever it wants to. So I don't know if that answers your question. It was a very non-materialistic answer.
No, exactly. And getting back like a few minutes ago when you're talking about the dreaming state, there's what's called a lucid dreaming.
Right.
When you wake up, like you're actually in a dream, but then you have this potential to control your outcome. And a lot of times, say, people, like especially the Buddhists and all that stuff, they want you to use like a lucid dream and to change things. And they also said with the healing of the memories, say you have something traumatic, and then you want to face it, but if you lucid dream that traumatic event, then you can make the outcome to come out to a positive spin, and therefore healing you of that traumatic past thing. That's just one of it. But to get deeper with the lucid dreaming, they say if you can lucid dream, your dreams will kind of determine your outcome and sometimes your reality.
You know, that's something that Tom Campbell did address, and he said lucid dreaming, and I can kind of understand this, is a dream that has your intellect involved, and
right.
Your regular consciousness is involved in the dream state. With a regular dream, you're dreaming, he says, out of the being level. And I have noticed choices that you make, of course, it's in this different virtual reality. The choices don't have the consequences they do here. I have, and I don't know if this sounds kind of weird, I have been trying to make better choices in my dream state. I'm not talking about lucid dreaming, just regular dreaming, and not from an intellectual level, but from a being level. And I'll be honest, I feel better about people. I'm not as cynical. I'm still cynical, but I'm not as cynical, and I believe it has helped me. You know, relate to people in more of a loving manner. I don't know, sounds crazy, but
well, you know, they say like the lucid dreaming, it's like when you're that one part of your brain where you're just doing the dreaming and dream, but then when you wake up that you realize you're in a dream, what's doing your conscious part of your brain is actually woken up, and now it's interchanging with that lower part of it, and then that's where you can control, where if you want to fly, you fly and all that. But they say that whole experience interpretation classes with John Paul Jackson's Dreams Ministry, and they were getting back to biblical dream interpretation like they did with Joseph, all the other people in the Bible and stuff. Like God speaks to us in dreams, and that's what they're talking about. Like, we do dream interpretation biblically. You know, God's actually showing that. And so, but they were saying, some people were saying that if he could allude to a dream something, you could actually change the outcome, not only in dream, but somehow God shows us stuff prophetically in dreams, and if he could change that, change out the outcome, avoid something that might happen in reality.
Well, Tom, you've heard my nickel story, haven't you?
Which one was that?
Well, let me tell you real quick. And I've had dreams that I considered lucid dreams, where in the dream I knew it was a dream, and you know I knew it was a unreal situation, not my normal reality. But several years ago, in fact, it's been about maybe 30 years ago, I was really heavy into metal detecting. And I would go every Saturday morning to metal detect. And I had a very vivid dream. I'm not going to call it lucid because it was a dream to me, that I would go to a particular hill by a particular tree and dig down, with my metal detector, get a hit, dig down and find 2 silver nickels. Now, silver nickels were just made, I think, a couple of years during World War II when nickel was in short supply. So they were pretty rare. And so as soon as I got up, put my clothes on, I don't even think I ate breakfast, went directly to that heap. And in 6 minutes, I had 2 silver nickels and didn't find anything else. Now, the interesting thing about it, and I thought, oh, this is weird. Now, when we started talking about Mandela and shifting and that sort of thing, I got thinking, if we're actually in a different reality, I may not have those 2 silver nickels anymore. They may still be at that hill. So I went to where I had, all my coins that I had found metal detecting. And sure enough, I had taped up with some Scotch tape my 2 silver nickels together. But the thing I noticed about them, I cleaned them up, and other than some pitting from the acid in the ground, I mean, these were pristine. The edges were sharp and crisp. They must have gotten in the ground no later than the late 40s. I mean, they were not in circulation long at all. And so there was no way, I wouldn't have even been around then. And I mean, there was certainly no way I could have done it. So somehow in my dream, I accessed either in a larger database or had some type of image from a larger consciousness or something that put that information in there. But it was just really, really weird. So what do you think about being able to access, like they call it, cache records and different files that may be in a unified consciousness?
Well, let me give you my nickel story, because you just reminded me some.
Okay.
My daughter, she bought this car, right? A used car at a car dealer. And, we paid all this money down and everything. They said, oh, yeah, the registration would be like $450. I said, no way. You said it was included. They said, no. So it's like, take it. Well, I went to sleep like a night or two after that, so my daughter had a temporary tag. All of a sudden, I just got this, in this dream, I believe God was showing me, say, just go down to the DMV, say, you lost the tag was stolen, and they took your registration right out of the car. You can't find either. And so then to get your registration, to get the new card and the new tag was like not $450. It was only like about $35 or something like that.
Oh, wow.
So she went ahead and did that, and she got her tag and registration, because the dealer already had it done, but they wouldn't give it to her, So, and that was something I would never figured it out.
Wow.
Something like that.
Well, God wanted you to have that information.
That is true.
I think so too. I think so too. And I'm reading here on Time Health. Okay, I just happened to check out this site, and it really kind of opens your mind a little bit, because when we have like anxiety dreams that shock us and stuff like that, it gets us to, motivated in those ways. But when we turn the dream, it says, with a willingness to make peace, it starts to morph, and it can bring us some very beautiful experiences. It says here, our dreams are dark, black, sooty, and coal sometimes, and we find the most precious gem, metaphorically, in a dark place. These dreams could help heal me, he said, but I'd have to get a little bit dirty. So, I don't know, a lot of times, I've had many inspirations come in the form of dreams. It's like the Lord telling me what to do.
Yeah, and you know, talking about illness and something, and of course, working as a nurse and having been very sick myself, you do sometimes get the feeling that there is a higher purpose at work. When I was in the hospital with heart, liver, and kidney failure, I'd been really involved in bodybuilding, and my focus was on me, how I looked, and you know, then almost dying. It about us. I mean, you know, we're not here to be about us. We're here to be about others. And when you shift that focus, I think not only helps you're just a better person, health wise, you know, love wise, everything wise. It's just because we're not built to be self-centered SOBs. Healthy. We're not built that way. And when you see people, and I'm not going, well, I'll mention a name. When you see like Hillary Clinton, when you see Hillary Clinton fall out at the little thing she was out, just sick from something, and you know, you see all these, you know, people who have done terrible things and are not very, and I'm not saying everybody that's sick has problems or it's their fault. It's not. But, you know, sometimes bad things happen to good people, but a lot of times bad things happen to really bad people because God's knocking on the door and saying, you need to wake up, get with the program. You know, if what's it going to take me cutting off both your legs and putting you in a wheelchair to start thinking on why you're here? You know, because that can happen.
Oh, absolutely. It's like a wake-up call.
And for some people, it's the best thing that's ever happened to them. I mean, they are much better people, you know, in the wheelchair than they would have ever been out walking around on two legs, creating havoc and chaos. So their spirituality is much improved because of their, you know, whatever problem they have. You know, Paul talked about having a problem and, you know, asking God to take his problem away. Well, maybe he needed that thorn in his side to be humble. I don't know.
I think so. What he said. He left the thorn there. Otherwise, he would have been prideful with all the revelation and everything he had, you know? I mean, that's why I left it there. And like you said, you know, it's like a wake-up call, you know, when God sends the hard things through your life, like the children of Israel. They could have been, instead of 40-year journey, it was 11 days, but because they were just stiff-necked, you know, it was, you know, working them over, I guess, that you would call it.
And you know, if you think about time-wise, I'm sure to God, whether it's one lifetime or 1,000, that's you know, and we view time so different, and at the same time, our time is getting shorter. You know, it's like time you said and Brian said. It's what we call physical time is actually showing an hour's not 60 minutes anymore.
No, it's like 53 minutes, right, Tom?
What's that?
Didn't you say we're losing about 7 minutes per hour? Something like that? At this rate?
It slowed down. Yeah, it's slowed down because if you count 1001 or One Mississippi 1, you watch a second on your phone clock, it's moving quicker than what you're actually clicking it. So we're perceiving time is actually moving quicker, even though it's the same. And to get on the subject of time, like the one thing I heard about Harmony One said that the past and the future is an illusion. I thought about that. I said, okay, how can that be, right? But then when you look, you're living in the present, right? So when you see old grandma's, 1850 King James Bible, and you see that verses were changed back then. Now, grandma and everybody grew up, it was never changed until the ME happened. But the thing is, when you're looking at the past now, you're always looking at it through the eyes of the present. So, in other words, they've experienced it the way it used to be, and that was a reality because they were in the present when that happened. But now, when it's changed, now our current present shows it's now the new change, but we're looking at that only in the present. So everything that appears to be something that's old from the past has been presently changed as well. But when they were back in that day, living the present reality in the present back then, it was like that. That's the reason why they remember it the old way and not the new way. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
And like where they say where God is in all places at all times, right? He's in all physical locations. Well, same with time. God's in all time from eternal past to eternal future. He sees his present as us now, his present is us like 50 years ago, and then back when Moses was telling him to take off the shoes. He's seeing all that at the same time. That's how he's in all times. And that's kind of my theory on that. Like to see if anybody has any comment on it. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, and I heard somebody saying that the real us, and I'm not talking about our avatar or us in this simulation, but our little individuated unit of consciousness that without which none of this would exist is timeless, lives forever, and is part of God. Now I think because we do have self-will and we can make choices, we can choose not to be part of God. And then there's another place for us, maybe this counterpart of where God is positive and lowering entropy, lowering randomness. There's this part that wants to increase randomness and increase fear and increase ego and have all these horrible things. And so we have another place we can go if we so choose. But I think originally we were created out of love and caring.
I think so too. And somewhere along the line, somebody wanted to create havoc, and that somebody is Satan. He didn't like the order of God. He was jealous.
Well, it may be in some point in the future that realm doesn't exist anymore, that God has taken care of that realm.
I think so. I think that's we're moving toward the light, I think.
Yeah. And and this is another thing, and some people disagree with me, but I'm kind of open to the idea of that where we are may take the form of the body we're in now, and possibly after we die, maybe another body. I think it certainly would explain a lot. Now, people are quick to point out that we're appointed once to die. Well, maybe we do die in this avatar, but that doesn't mean that being that our consciousness is affected, and if there are still lessons to learn and still ways that we can be of benefit to the higher consciousness, you know, even in the Bible it talked about, I think it was John the Baptist. No, it was Jesus. People thought he was John the Baptist. Some people thought he was John the Baptist come back from the dead. So the idea has been around for a while. Like I say, I'm kind of on the fence that I'm not saying, you know, because that's, see, we're in a subset. We're a subset of a larger set of reality, and it's kind of hard for us in the subset to make a lot of revelations about a larger set. The larger set can make revelations about a subset, but a subset is hard to go up. It's kind of like an ant looking at a tire and trying to figure out what a car is. It's just some things are just, I think, beyond our capacity to know. That being said, we can know more about them, but I don't think in this lifetime we'll know everything about them.
Well, there's another talk in the ME community about synchronicities, right? I don't know if you've heard about that. It's like somebody thinks something and then it manifests in something else. Have you ever had that happen, Paul? Have you ever had that happening lately, especially now that you're awake and aware of the effect?
I have had that happen in dreams. I have had some things where, you know, and I've heard it between you and Tom, you're talking about something and you'd be thinking of a specific place and Tom would be thinking a specific place. I've had things like that happen. It was real interesting when Mark Sargent, I did the interview the other day. Before he came on, I was playing some music, and I had picked out a song I wanted to play closing time, and somehow when I clicked on it, I got Three-Eyed Blind Jumper, and there's a line in it about, you know, the lives and the world we live in, and I put /on, and I thought, this is just really weird to get this song that Mark Sargent called in, and it was, like I say, it was not the song I picked. So, yeah, stuff like that happens, and I think if you're open to it, that will happen more frequently.
Let me tell you something that's really strange. Is I drive a Ford Transconnect, right? And you have that little, it's like a glued on little logo piece of plastic say sync, because I got that active sync phone Bluetooth in the car. I mean, it's glued onto the dash or whatever, right? And all of a sudden, this is the craziest thing. As soon as that thing fell, I was listening to somebody talking about something on YouTube. As soon as that thing fell, sync, S-Y-N-C, as soon as that fell, the word that somebody was saying in a regular random sentence said the word sync at the exact same time. And that was the most thing I ever encountered, because the thing actually fall right when they said the word sync, and that literally just blew me away.
Well, what do you think it is? What do you think? What do you think causes that? I mean, is it somehow related to this matrix that we're in? Some may be part of the program, or
I think what it is,
from God.
You know, the quantum universe deals with observation. When you observe something, you collapse the wave of probability and becomes more of a location, substance, right? So now, since being aware of it, we're kind of like, our consciousness is somewhat more active, more activated. So we learn this in dream interpretation. When you start thinking or focus about certain thing, all of a sudden, like for a Volvo, all of a sudden you see these cars in your dream, and you just start looking for Volvos. All of a sudden you see them all around, these cars. Same thing. It's the act of being aware and being conscious of it, next thing you know, now it's revealing itself. That's the reason why, you know, the people who are really seeking the ME and all these changes and not afraid of it, going hard, it's revealing more levels, more layers of revelation about it. And I think synchronicities is like one of those phenomena that as you get more and more into like the understanding of the ME and accepting it as being normal part of reality, then of course you're going to start seeing synchronicities. And I think that's what's happening.
Yeah, I agree with Tom. I think, you know, as he said, our future is filled with future possibilities. Our past is filled with our past actions and our past possibilities, and we're just a thread in the now that goes between that. When you have an intent, a specific as part of your being, be it for what? Be it for good, be it for bad, be it for whatever, be it for something Mandela related, whatever, that nudges those probabilities, future probabilities, and so your odds increase. Your odds increase that you'll say, run into somebody at the mall who has just had an ME thing and he's dying to tell somebody and you're the first person there. It just increases your odds of those kind of woo-woo things happening. And then when you have a big group of people with an intent, I mean, just, hey, I'll give you a good example. Monday, the eclipse, I was working. I was able to stop in the hall and look up clouds, 2, 3, 4 people gathered, and looked up. The clouds just beautifully parted, and it was just enough haze we could sit there and watch the eclipse without any irritation to our eyes or anything.
Oh, wow.
The odds of that clouds moving, might be a little, but it sure happened, and we sure wanted it to happen.
I like that word intent. It gives a whole new meaning to the consciousness.
Exactly.
But it also comes into play, like, you know, we ask ourselves, because we talk about reality a lot, and I know that can be a controversial word at times. The nature of the reality is this, that reality is, in fact, what we make of it. There is a limitation, though, you know, when it comes to reality, right? There's this, we can control just about everything in our reality. We can control what we take in, for instance, what we watch, what we, you know, the people that we hang out with, you know. But all of these things, I believe these MEs are messages to us, some kind of form or fashion. These are messages speaking directly to us. And we have, you know, God is pure love. Okay, and I know somebody said that in the chat earlier. God is pure love. As long as we keep our eyes on Jesus, everything will work out in the end. So there's nothing that we have to worry about at all. I will say, I have anxieties. I have overcome that, though, and you guys have been very prayerful with me, and I appreciate that. I have sometimes anxieties of getting in front of people. But I believe that we're all here for a reason. We're all here, and the nature of the reality is that we're God is in control. You know, that's all I'm saying.
I think that's great. That's perfect. And to me, the real kicker of the whole thing is, and I think it goes along with Christ's teachings, we have to change as beings. I used to work out with a guy, and he was very sociable, a very popular person, but I can tell you many times somebody'd come in and he would say, "Well, hey, man, how you doing?" and just talk and pat him on the back, and they'd walk up and he'd say, "I hate to SOB." And from his being, he was acting. And so many times, and if you think about it, we have better manners, but at the root, our ego, our fears and beliefs, if you go back to what Tom Campbell talks about, we're still pretty retro. We have not evolved at the being level. I mean, we want what we want in relationships. You know, we want what the other person can give us, not how can we help, how can we be of benefit. In our jobs, what can this job give me? Now, how can I benefit my employer? How can I be a better employee? In church services and in life in general, it's so many times about me. My goals, and it's a society feeds into that. You know, better yourself, go to college, do this. I can tell you a half dozen people who are working for minimum wage that have a college education. I mean, that's the unfortunate truth about our society and our economy.
You hear about the millionaires that never even graduated high school either.
Oh yeah. I mean,
their stories. It's not you know how much intelligence you are or whatever. It's just doing what you feel to do. I mean, it has nothing to do with education. It all has to do with timing, favor, and all that.
The amount of money you have or don't have in your bank account is not how you are developed spiritually as a person.
Exactly.
They're two different things.
That's true.
And in the book, the Bible, now they've changed, and Jesus has talked about putting money in the bank. You know, that wasn't in there.
Oh yeah, there's two other things. There. Can I say something real quick? There's two other change. Ecclesiastes 10:19 now says, and I got to attribute that one to EYA for finding that one. Is money? It talks about money making you happy. You know, money that contradicts what's in 2 Timothy, because if you look in Timothy, it talks about money. The love of money is the root of all evil. You know, kind of conflicts.
That's what happened. It's great gain. There's nothing in the world.
And the word. Let's talk about presidents. I mentioned EYA brought this up too, that the word presidents is in the Bible. I read the book of Daniel chapter 6, in fact, is where the word presidents is found. The presidents was not there when I read it back in January. I read the entire book of Daniel.
Well, this is an ongoing change, and I think it is purposely done that way. And you know, could it be CERN, a D-Wave? Yeah, it could be, but if it is, it's been allowed to do that, and it's going to be used for a purpose that I think will draw people closer to the Lord. It's being done for an evil intent by men or demons. It's going to backfire on them. I got news for them.
Yes, it's like playing with fire, right? You're going to get burned.
And when you get burned, you're going to think, I should have listened to Mama and stayed away from that fire, and from now on, I'm going to do what Mama says.
And what about what we're seeing with the Last Supper painting? There's many different artworks that have changed. I don't know if you've noticed at all, Paul, but the Last Supper is a famous painting. Somebody mentioned that in the chat.
I knew the Mona Lisa they said had changed.
Right, Mona Lisa. From my memory, she didn't have a veil. The Last Supper painting, the cup was on the table, and now we have all these shot glasses. What looks like shot glasses on the table, and the cup is on the wall.
Oh my goodness!
Oh, it's awful. So some of this is done, I think, spiritually. There is an intent, like you talked about intent. I'm just not seeing what the intent is 100%, but we all know something's happening. That's the bottom line.
Well, if it is, if this is a result of the dark force just trying to create a chaotic situation where control is easier, I think it's gonna backfire. You know, if you go back
Amen.
to like, and I love so much talking to your dad, but if you go back to 9/11, since 9/11, we've had all these Homeland Security, and we've been under scrutiny, and I'm just waiting any day for really a lot more rigorous restrictions to be put on the internet. I think right now maybe they're just looking at the internet and saying, let's see where they're going with this. We can get feedback on what people are thinking, and so they're leaving it alone. But I think if they ever consider it to be a threat, we could end up like China's in the internet. Oh, and here's a quick thing. Now, y'all are the experts on Mandela effect. Is this worldwide or in logos and things, or there was mostly English? I had that question.
Yeah, we actually have a couple of people that come on our show. One of them, namely Candace, who is from New Zealand. She is severely affected. They say Australia shifted. It moved further north now, and South America shifted east toward Africa. If you look at the maps, it looks all messed up now. I've noticed Denmark looks like it's broken up in pieces. I don't remember that.
No, I don't.
So that's another thing. Geography. That one we pretty much leave up to Lone Eagle. He's the one that studies geography changes. But it's affecting the whole world. There are many people all over the world being affected. And even in the Quran, I've heard the Quran has changed too.
Oh, that's wild. Well, if you think about it, if this is people with a globalist agenda, which includes subverting all religions and establishing one world religion and one world economy, et cetera, they would want everything affected. They would want maybe they think that by now people will be throwing the Bibles down and said it's nothing but a bunch of lies. I don't remember this. I can't trust this anymore. And that's not happening. If anything, I think people are looking more into the Bible and through guidance of the Holy Spirit and saying,
oh, wow. Well, there's somebody in the chat, Zark Drurk, says, hey, I'm from Romania. Wow. Hey, Zark. That is amazing. We get people from other countries joining in our chats, and
oh, wow.
That is amazing to see that. All over the world, people are waking up.
Well, y'all have such a good group too. You don't. I think in a lot of groups there's it looks like Satan always puts one or two people to kind of mess things up. That sounds bad, but thankfully I hadn't. Everything y'all have ever done that I've listened to has run real smooth, and people will consider it. I think sometimes like myself, they may get a little over enthused, but that's I don't think that's a good thing. You have passion. People who don't have passion, well, your being your emotion comes from being. When you're really mad at somebody, that's coming from your being. That's not your intellectual self. And and when you really love something and are passionate, that's coming from your being. That's who you really are. And that's kind of what it's about. Be better people, have a better world. What we're supposed to be doing, I think.
Yeah, to basically live a righteous life, where actually, as Paul describes it, I believe it says blameless. Where where we're not doing things to upset someone else on purpose to at our gain.
What do you think? I mean, this is kind of getting off the subject. I don't even know. You know, back what was it, a year or two ago, they had it was a big controversy about where the Confederate flag, and now it was all these different. And I don't think all of them were Confederate, but I think they even wanted to take down statues of George Washington and people that had slaves and different things.
Oh gosh, and, you talking about the recent news, all that stuff? Yeah. Well, I actually talked to a very good friend of mine, and she said the best thing to do, what she says is to take all these statues, put them in a museum. That way it's out of sight, out of harm's way. Have a special place for those things, for those histories, and that way you're not upsetting anybody, but at the same time, it's still a memorial. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And one thing and I'm not going to use the word hypocrite, but one thing that is puzzling to me is there's still slavery in the world. I mean, there's still people who are slaves. Middle Eastern have slaves. There's slaves in Africa. There's still people who are in slavery. And the main thing, and I've had several shows on this, is if you want to drag in the Civil War, the average person who fought on the Confederate side was a poor white farmer who did not want to go because he knew going he would leave his wife and children there on the farm, and it would be very hard. They didn't want to go. A lot of people who had been slaves themselves, Irish in Tennessee and Kentucky and that region, did not fight. They refused to fight, the hillbillies. And the rich landowners who profited, who actually made money off of slavery, they didn't have to go. I mean, they could pay a certain amount of money and not go. And the idea that there was just slavery in the South, there was slavery in the North. In fact, when Lincoln freed the slaves during the war, he only freed the slaves in Southern held territories. In the northern states and northern territories where they had slavery, you were still a slave. So, Lincoln wasn't this. Well, there's a lot of things about Lincoln that were good and a lot of things about him that were bad, but the idea that he was just this wonderful person, he said, and this is one of his things, the Union with slavery or the Union without slavery, but the Union still, we will be a Union regardless. So he didn't care. He just didn't want the states to succeed. And the only reason they were going to succeed to start with is because the North had been putting a lot of tariffs on goods and all, and it was an economic thing to start with. And at that time, they, within about 15 to 20 years, there wouldn't have been slavery anyway because, they were coming up with mechanical devices that did the work of many slaves, and it was much cheaper, and it was all about money. The big
efficient. You wouldn't have to keep slaves if you ran a machine that will work anyhow. So it's all about the money. Yeah, what makes more money, more profitable.
And this is the only reason they got rid of so many Irish slaves is because the Irish slaves would get drunk and then go kill the masters. And they said, we will pay more for African slaves, which in the day when you could buy African and Irish slaves, the Irish slaves, and this is according to Michael Hoffman's book, they were white, they were slaves. The African slaves went about for 50 pounds sterling, and the Irish slaves went not. So, my kinfolk that were slaves, they probably weren't very good ones. But anyway, but the thing is, there is still slavery now. Oh, work to get rid of slavery rather than worrying about a few silly statues, and we're going to kill people over it, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, some people that the past is in the past. Yeah, I mean, I know it's hard to forget that, but we're not like that anymore.
About that whole mindset is, sure, definitely there was evil done in the past, slavery to the African Americans, especially the Native Americans, which like 90% of our population was wiped out. Okay, so that was in.
Oh yeah, we just killed them.
All the instances of the past that happened. Okay, but now here we are in the 21st century. That evils of the past, therefore, we'll keep bringing up as being our reality. That we still have slighted, we're still injustice. I mean, when a black person or a Hispanic person walks in, they're not. To me, they're not merited on their color, race, or whatever happened to them past. I can't feel sorry for them because of what happened past. But what I can do, I can feel sorry for them if they had a hard time with finance or something. But their own merit is the way they behave, their fruits, not by what they look. Because the real world is not what I see, what color or what skin. The real world is what's in your mind, how you treat people, the whole social aspect. And if we talk negative things like we're talking about earlier, then those things are going to keep a life of itself. That people always get angry and they'll just do whatever because they feel like they've been violated, even though they had nothing to do with it because they weren't even born or existed, And but I want to change it a little bit. What we're talking about, I heard this. Einstein, how he came up with all these theories and stuff which were proven. Okay. Now Einstein was in a postal office. I'm sorry, not a postal office, a patent office. Yeah. And he was there all day long, so it was kind of a mindless job to him. So all he did all day was think. And because he just think about it, he created. That's when he came up with all these, formulas and everything came out. And I believe it was Copernicus or Galileo, I'm not sure, but black flags back then. For 2 years, he could not be in a university. He had to stay home, and all he did, he was thinking about the angular trajectory, and he actually invented calculus and everything solely by thinking it up, And I heard this young teenager, he said, forget about learning, just stop, think, and create, because, when you think about something, it'll give up all of its answers. You'll get all the right questions, and it'll reveal the truth. And I heard another person saying that all the information you need is inside you. And it brings me to the Bible where it says, Jesus says the Holy Spirit will lead and guide you into all the truth. Not only what Jesus says, but even truth about not so much religion and the Bible, but truth of reality, truth of how to make inventions and stuff. And there's so many documented cases where people, when they do their passion, when they do what motivates their passion, that's where they excel, become great at. You see people when they go to the job and when they hate their life out, but then you have other people who love what they do. They just have all kinds of life and happiness and contentment because you're resonating in what God created you to be, because God created everybody unique and individually. So what you need to do is find out who you really are first, and then that'll reveal what you need to do in life, and then it will always open up those doors for you.
Well, let me ask you this, Tom. Do you I kind of believe this because it's kind of happened to me, particularly when I used to take tests, that we, if we have this clearness of thought, if we have this closeness with God, if our eyes are open, that we are in touch with information that may be at a cosmic level, or at in a different in a different reality, or in a different data set, or whatever you want to call it. I can remember many times in school, and I, thank goodness I always made pretty good grades in college and that sort of thing, and sometimes I just see an answer and know it was correct and have no idea why I knew it was correct, but I would know it was correct, and it always was. Do you think that we do have access on some level to information that is, you know, kind of out there in a collective consciousness sort of format?
Yeah.
I believe that, and I'm giving you one testimony to back that. It was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, based training courses. I actually took the wrong test, right? And then I said, oh no. Then I found the right test. I only had like 15 minutes to get it done, right? So I just went straight to the test. I said, God, you're going to have to show me the answer. I'm going through it. I could feel like the quietness, and I just picked these answers. I got it right one after another. And then I aced the test. I did that like within 10 minutes. And
oh, wow.
That's exactly what I'm saying is the Holy Spirit will lead and guide you to all the truth. But go ahead, Brian. I knew you were going to say something. Brian.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
No.
I mean, I was just going to say that, like, I really feel that, you know, although sometimes it's out of our reach, but with the Mandela effect, it's actually in our reach. There are times that I feel like I can connect to every one of you, you know, just like you can connect to every one of us, you know. You can sort of sense a situation, you can feel for it, you can. I've told people this before. I actually feel auras around people. I'm blind in one eye. I don't know if I told you that, Paul, but I'm blind in one eye, so I can.
I remember you mentioned it in one of your videos.
Hey, you could see more with that one eye than a lot of people see with 2 eyes. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, thank you, Tom. But yeah, I hear my hearing is it kind of makes up for that loss. My hearing and my touch have gone up since the 1 sense went down. So, but yeah, there are times where I can really connect with people and I can feel auras.
Well, now you're saying auras, and for years I've said vibes, and I think we're talking about the same.
I think it's roughly the same thing.
Good vibe about people, or some people you just don't like, and you just feel like this is a bad person, or this person is a good person but they have problems, or this person is really nice. I mean, you do get vibes about people, and knock on wood, most of the time they're correct. Go where you gut.
Yeah. I think we learn through experience. You know, that we don't want the same harm to happen to us over and over again. We want to break that loop. We want to be positive. We want to find laughter and peace and happiness in our lives. And you know, through the Mandela Effect community, I've learned to really reach out to people, and it's interesting some of the stories you hear. You know, a lot of which are very positive. You know, that their faith has only increased because of the effect. So go ahead, Tom. You want to talk for a little bit on that? Do you want to tell about some of your experiences?
Well, I'd just say like people have a positive experience from the ME. She keeps saying that she because of the ME she came back to God and all that. So that's a big positive thing there. But with me, what I found with the ME is it kind of makes my life totally exciting, and I just seem to get all these, you know, clues and information that I never really found out before, and it's like thinking out of the box. I mean, you know, if I would see myself a couple of years think like this, I said, man, you're kind of like whacked out, you know. But actually, there's just an enlightening experience to all this, and it's so fascinating to actually see physical reality change. I mean, it's entertainment. I always say that the ME, the Mandela effect or quantum effect, is the greatest show on earth. I mean, you could go watch movies or go get entertained at a theme park, but my entertainment is going on YouTube and find out the newest MEs and stuff.
Yeah, Tom, that's funny. It's
funny. Up with holes in the right, you know?
It's funny you mentioned that because I've actually noticed some of my kids' toys change from the effect. One of them, namely, was my son's Darth Vader bank. A bank for Christmas, and it was the Damian Gross noticed this, that this Darth Vader now has a silver nose. He didn't ever have that before. Now he does.
Wait, did you say Darth Vader has a silver nose?
He does now.
Oh, does it go with, what was it, CPO3 silver leg?
C-3PO has a silver leg now. He didn't ever have one before.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
That sounds like a silver lining to me, either way.
Yeah.
But now, both of y'all have mentioned this, and I believe there is validity to it, that if you look at changes individually and in totality, that you can relate them to a message. I don't know what that message is. Y'all probably have a clearer understanding, but I do think that, I mean, it's a bigger message than just I'm changing, be aware that things can change. I think there's specific messages in the changes, and I think y'all are probably, you know, as well as anybody, more attuned to what those are or could be.
Yeah, and we notice more and more every day. Like it's not just one change these things go through; it's several.
Multiple times.
Yeah, Tom, how many times have we seen Ford logo change?
A lot. And the Kit Kat logo, what gets me about that is, you know, everybody remembers the dash being changed, but with all the lowercase t's, now it has like a hook, looks like a reverse J. And it's like a lot of these videos, nobody really starts pointing that out. I mean, that's a bigger change than a little dash to me.
Yeah. The thing with the Kit Kat that I go back to is kind of a sentimental change. When my mother was still at home and was kind of requiring a lot of care, she was kind of sinking into dementia, but still able to function, not to drive or anything like that, but she could still stay at home. And her favorite treat was Kit Kats. And she'd always tell me to go to the store and get her some kitty cats. And I distinctly remember the little dash, and I'd buy them just, 4 or 5 packs at a time, because she'd go through about a pack a day. She loved them. But it's when you have those memories, particularly when you have a memory that's associated to an emotion, that's a good memory. That's a strong memory. If we do store our memories in our brains, and I wonder about that sometimes too, the neural pathways are very strong when you have an emotional attachment. And the reason I say wondered if we are storing memories in our brains, but they found this guy in England, and I don't know what tests they were doing on him, but he was normally functioning, and he was a bank president, something of that nature, very highly educated. His brain was just a little bit bigger than a ping pong ball. Did not affect his functioning at all. If we're in a reality that has rules, and those rules are not set, then you have a blank place for probability. With a stroke, it affects generally one side of your brain, and you get something like you have a limp on one side, or one side of your mouth droops, or your arm weakness. It affects, the opposite side of your body, and that's a rule. But yet, now get this, people who have seizures, and this happened to a friend of mine's daughter, they did this procedure, they literally took out half of her brain. And you know how that affects her functioning? None.
What?
None. It didn't affect it at all.
Yeah,
that doesn't make sense.
Well, wait a minute. Are we being fed a lie?
It's called a hemelectomy, where they take out half the brain, where like you said, they would have like a insane amount of seizures because somehow it was shorting out, for lack of a better term. And when they did the hemelectomy, they take that half out. And what happens, the other half of the brain it just takes over, reading it's like a neuroplasticity, and it kind of replaces what was lost, you know?
Yeah, but why would, if that's the case, then why would the other half of your brain take over when you have a stroke? The good half.
Because it's still there. It's still operating, so it's not gonna, it sees no need to take it. It's like the law of diffusion when you take something out.
But it is confusing, and here's one for you, Tom. When we have stem cells, say you grow some stem cells in a petri dish, okay. You take a third of those stem cells and put them in another petri dish, and another third in another one, and the last third in another one, and you put a different medium in there. One may turn into bone, one may turn into muscle, one may turn into skin, and they have found, the biologists have found that where we thought the nucleus of our cell was like a little brain and control thing, that actually it didn't do that, and that the cell membrane itself acted like a diode, and it would, you have receptors that would let information in and out, and there was some had to do this, which could work in a digital way, and maybe receiving in of a informational systems through singular cells. I don't know. It's just real interesting. The environment and what's put into us, I think, is more important than our DNA or what we think we intrinsically have.
Yeah, like the foods we eat and all that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a little guy today, and he was asking me some stuff at the gym, and I said, well, you're going to have to eat better. Because, I mean, you could look at him and tell things like the bubble, or, the plastic PDVs and stuff. I mean, this little fellow was full of estrogen. I mean, he had evidently had a pretty rough diet as far as from a health wise, and I was trying to help him with that. Because it's stuff from it's our environment. It's killing us. And I see people every day that you would think would be healthy, and they come down with, and pancreatitis has gone nuts. I used to never see that, and it's like it's just rampant. I mean, it's crazy.
Oh yeah,
these weird things.
Yeah, not to mention we have a lot of people that are affected by thyroid, and many people don't know it either.
Oh yeah.
You notice that thyroid is up.
And that's something. Sometimes, like you say, people will have for years and not know them, but people die with pancreatitis, can die. I mean, they can live too, but I've seen several people, in fact, a lady I used to work with died not long ago, and she was 40-some-odd years old, and I don't even think she drank at all, but it's something in the environment. I guarantee you it's something in the environment, and which is another reason I'm glad I'm a vegetarian. I think I'm not going to put that burden on anybody, but if you do get a chance, I guarantee you'll feel better. You really will.
Exactly.
I totally agree with eating
Detox.
raw vegetables. I still like my meats, but I'm totally there with eating as many raw vegetables as possible. And you talk about the pH level of your body. That's another whole thing where some of these foods, they have a low pH, which makes your body acidic, which welcomes diseases.
I wanted to mention something real quick because I know we're approaching the bottom half of the bottom part of the hour where we're getting close to the end of the show. I actually asked a minister about the trespasses. I asked him, "What do you remember? What do you remember about the Lord's Prayer in Matthew 6?"
That's the one I'd say it every night. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those that trespass against us. And it's not there anymore.
Nope, it's forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And
that's the way it was in Mark.
Yeah, in Mark it was, right? Not in Matthew.
Yeah, but not Matthew.
No. And there's another part in there where it talks about on earth, Actually, it mentions in earth as it is in heaven instead of on earth. I know a lot of people are going crazy about that.
Oh yeah.
And instead of saying our Father who art, it says which art in heaven.
I noticed that too.
Oh, I was listening to Rob Skibo. He's a flat earther. He's also a preacher. And the first thing he said was the Lord created the heaven and earth. It's never been the heaven and earth. It's always the heavens. But see, even though he's a preacher and sees that stuff every day, you know, unless you have the concept that things can change, you'll never catch that sort of a change.
Yeah, because they see the part in Revelation that says, oh, basically you'll be punished if you change the Bible, this book.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
right. So a lot of people think that the Bible is not changing, but in fact it is.
The Bible can't change. That's the thing. They get the paradigm, like you were saying, that the Bible can't change because they could never believe that would happen.
Right. And I've talked to a half a dozen preachers. I'm sure y'all have talked to them. And it's just like, you know, it's just like me trying to, and this isn't critical to the preachers because I know where they're coming from, but it's just trying to like teach algebra to a cat. I mean, you know, you always go back to say, well, you got to get the right translation. I'm saying, no, your Bible that's been sitting on your shelf, this King James Version, and they've been sitting there for 50 years, the words in that Bible have changed, and they can't absorb it. It just, it's just, it just, you know, it doesn't stick. So, you know, but, you know.
Well, there's a lot of what seems like a lot of lawlessness going on right now, and you know, the nature of what's going on, and when you take a step back from television, right? Because television is itself a program. You watch something on TV, it's going to influence you in some way. You take a step back and you can see the evil in everything. I tried to find a good program for my son the other night to watch. It was extremely difficult, let me tell you. Oh, yeah. I found one program, it was good, and then it turned bad. There was another program right after it. So, yeah, you got to be careful what you put in front of children these days.
Oh, yeah. Well, you got some parting words for us, Brian and Tom?
Yeah, all I want to say is I'm walking away today. What you said earlier about people's minds not believing that things can change, and that's the reason why they stick to whatever delusions things are. Totally made total sense to me. I really enjoyed that part.
I enjoyed it too. Paul. And let
me give you something real quick on that. And this is kind of where I got the idea. Basically, back when I was in college, I was a double major psych and social work. We had a neat young psych professor. He was the youngest guy in whatever school he went to, University of Louisiana, I believe, to get his doctorate. I mean, super cool, just a little bit older than us, just sharp as a tack. And he said, I want to show y'all something. There was a girl on the front class, on the front desk, we were in desk, and he hypnotized her. And she, you know, he said, you feel okay? Yeah. And he said, do you see the desk next to you? And she said, yes. And he said, it's gone. And her eyes got big, and her head went back, and her mouth went open. He said, now wake up. The desk was gone. I mean, you could literally see the fear in her eyes.
Oh my gosh.
Because her mind, thinking of believing the statement that he said, blotted out that desk. It did not exist in her reality anymore, and it was shocking to see.
Wait.
But that's the same thing with this Mandela effect. We can't see things that our minds won't let us.
Right.
That's exactly the reason why your perception is your personal reality. That's a fact.
Yeah.
I mean, if you go outside that general default perception that you have set up, then you just go tilt or shock, and you'll say, no, this can't be. And that's a very important subject to talk about when concerns the ME.
Oh yeah.
I don't know about you. That would shock the heck out of me. Seriously.
It was weird. It freaked me out just watching it. You know, I knew the desk was still there, but she sure didn't.
So this is on YouTube? Is this on YouTube?
No, this happened in class.
Gosh.
I saw it firsthand.
Oh my God.
In class. This was in like 1974 or something. You know, and but that's just the power of hypnosis and the power of the mind. And of course, there's no really such thing as hypnosis. It's all self-hypnosis. That's the secret of hypnosis. It's all self-hypnosis. You do it to yourself.
I've heard free will actually can work against the control, the hypnosis, or the veil that's being placed over people. You can consciously, you know, not so as to go against it, but you don't have to follow along like the rest of the.
Right.
Yeah.
You can
It's like the Pied Piper.
Suggestibility. If you have a strong will, you can be your own person and see your own reality. You know, that's it all, and it all kind of gets into the power of positive thinking. And when you believe in God, I believe you believe in yourself and your own perceptions too, because you know God has given us guidance, and we don't necessarily believe everything we hear on TV or radio or wherever. We use discernment, and that's the Holy Spirit is about discernment. You know, that's one of the big things.
Getting back to that's when you're aware of something, then you're more protected or guarded or shielded from the deception of it. Just being aware. You know,
you're right.
And that, again, it's the observation effect of quantum mechanics. Believe it or not, we're going to be like recircling back to the same theme all the time. It's basically, if you're awake and aware, observant, then you'll be, I would say, ahead of the curve. Yeah. You know? But people, when they can't handle a paradigm shift of something disappearing or changing, then what they do is they back off of it because of fear, and fear introduces more entropy, and it's just shooting you down to a lower frequency level, as they would say it, you know?
Yeah, it's just and making you more controllable.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there was a famous quote, "Nothing to fear but fear itself," right, from Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Winston Churchill.
Oh, I thought it was Franklin.
No,
Franklin
I was
Delano.
Winston Churchill said, "Never give up, never give up, never, never, never." Yeah, that was his thing. Yeah, that was FDR. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Then he set up Pearl Harbor. But
now he's going to dime. Or it used to be.
It used to be Eisenhower. Hey, Paul, before we forget, will you tell our viewers and your viewers about the conference coming up? I have a guest list on my site. Actually, on everyone can see it in my video description on my channel, and it's Brian McFarlane, not to be confused with Mick Farlane. It's MacFarlane. And if you go to my channel, you can see in each video where to find that link for the conference. Just sign the guest list, everybody. How many people can come to this event? And tell us about it.
I'm sure we can. We're gonna set up for 75, but we can expand that to 200.
Okay.
So, you know, and it's free admission. This is October the 28th, from 1 to 4 p.m. Eastern Time in the Hood Room at the City of Valley in the Community Center. Brian and his group, or whoever he wants, will have the last half. The first half will be Jim Smith from the Alabama Bigfoot Society. He's a great storyteller, and he'll be telling local tales of hauntings, Bigfoot, UFOs, kind of your conventional thing. And
awesome.
Brian's going to kind of pick up with what we're talking about now and those type of things. So we're going to cover pretty much all the bases. I have talked to a guy, and I hadn't got a okay on it. If he agrees to, I'll add an hour on the end for him. And this is Dean Odell, who is a preacher in Opelika. He's also a big YouTube presence on Flat Earth, but he is not really anything. But be that as it May is still going to be great, you know. And I know Brian, and I appreciate him so much coming down because he's got a long way to come and a short time to get there. Be like Burt Reynolds.
Oh yeah.
Tom, can you come
Smokey and the Bandit
and get you a Bandit car and kind of run in front of?
We'll probably carpool.
Oh yeah, okay. Just give me a nice,
78 Trans Am.
I want to go in style and more speed.
Yeah, Tom, maybe.
I'll settle for the Trans Am then. It's all going to have at least 800 horsepower to work with.
I'm going to head on. I think we got the ball game coming on here. And
Sweet.
my friends, I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Paul, so much. God bless you, man.
God bless y'all. God bless you, and God bless y'all. And Lord willing, I'll be here next week and listening. Thanks again, my friend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.